All right, let's jump straight in. Today, we're tearing into a focused executive briefing on how Med-Surg travel nurses can strategically maximize their take-home pay in 2026. If you've spent any time at all in the travel healthcare market, you know it can feel like a total maze, right? You've got gross numbers, hidden costs, competing offers. Well, today's analysis is going to cut right through all that noise. Right out of the gate, we've got to talk about leverage. Now, sure, specialties like the ICU, OR, or the ER, they might boast higher peak weekly rates. But Med-Surg holds the ultimate leverage card, and it comes down to one massive number. There are nearly 63,000 active travel listings available right now. Just to illustrate exactly what that means, compare Med-Surg towering at 63,000 listings to those specialized roles like the ICU or OR, which sit way down between 1,500 and 5,000. That massive volume, that means you have unparalleled contract availability. You can literally find work in almost every state and every major city. It gives you the absolute power of choice, and honestly, that's your most valuable asset when you're negotiating. To make the absolute most of that leverage, our analysis today is broken down into a 6-part financial playbook. We're going to cover volume leverage, pay benchmarks, location math, the CMSRN certification, shift timing and overtime, and finally, contract negotiation. Let's get right into it. Starting off with part 1, volume leverage and the absolute power of availability in today's market. So the crucial takeaway here is that because there is just such an overwhelming demand for Med-Surg nurses, it functions as the smartest, most flexible specialty for travel nursing. Why? Simply because you can maintain steady, uninterrupted contract work. Think about it. Chasing high peak rates in other specialties doesn't really matter if you end up sitting on the bench for a month waiting for a contract to open up. Med-Surg lets you keep that income flowing continuously. Moving right along to part 2, pay benchmarks. We need to look at exactly what Med-Surg pays so you know the current baseline you should be expecting. Nationally, the average weekly rate right now sits right around $2,100. The standard realistic range you're going to see runs from about $2,100 up to $2,900. Now, that depends heavily on the facility and the agency you partner with. If we annualize those numbers, you're looking at a base of roughly $96,500 up to $136,000 a year. But pay real close attention to the top end of these benchmarks. With the right strategy, the top earners in Med-Surg are clearing over $149,000 annually. What's really fascinating here is the direct comparison with staff positions. If we take that travel average of $2,100 a week and stack it up against the staff Med-Surg average of about $16 a week, travel Med-Surg continues to earn between 9 and 25% more than the equivalent staff role. So yeah, the financial incentive to travel in this specialty, it is absolutely still intact. All right, on to part 3, location math and why geography varies. Because capturing that top-tier pay actually requires abandoning a really common major myth about geography. You really need to understand this 5% figure. It's a total game changer. Unlike the ICU or OR markets, where crossing a state line can swing your pay drastically, Med-Surg is remarkably stable. The gap between the absolute highest paying and lowest paying markets for Med-Surg specifically is a surprisingly tight 5% spread. And here's why that 5% spread changes literally everything about how you should pick a contract. Let's say you see a California contract flashing this massive $3,200 a week gross. Awesome, right? But wait, after exorbitant housing costs and heavy state taxes, your actual net, the money you actually get to keep in your pocket, is around $650. Now compare that to a Texas contract with a much lower visual gross of $2,300. Because Texas has no state income tax and way cheaper housing, you actually net roughly $1,100. Chasing a high gross number in a high cost of living state is so often a trap. For Med-Surg, you got to prioritize cost of living and tax structures over those marginal top-line differences every single time. Next up, part 4. We're looking at the CMSRN certification and how to boost your base rate using this incredibly efficient micro-tactic. No, that is not a typo. Securing your certified medical surgical registered nurse credential delivers a staggering 1,500 to 3,000% return on investment from a single one-time cost. It is hands down the absolute standout move for your career. Let's break down how this builds. Step 1, you just need 2,000 hours of recent Med-Surg experience to qualify. Step 2, you drop $315 on the exam fee. And step 3, Well, according to the data, that credential typically translates directly into a $5,000 to $10,000 annual earnings bump. You literally spend a few $100 once, and you make thousands more every single year. Now, additionally, getting your ACLS or PALS can further strengthen your options, especially for pediatric units. But the CMSRN is absolutely your core financial multiplier here.
Part 5 brings us to shift timing and overtime. Beyond certifications, this is where you really take control of your own paycheck. When you start looking at available premiums, committing to the night shift adds an extra $3 to $8 an hour. If we assume a $5 an hour night differential over a year, working 36 hours a week, that works out to roughly $8,600 in extra annual income just for working nights. Add in weekend differentials of $2 to $5 an hour, plus holiday pay running time and a half or even double time, and you are stacking some substantial cash on top of your base rate without working a single extra hour. But hey, if you do want to work extra hours, the math gets absolutely wild. If you strategically pick up just 4 extra overtime shifts a month, assuming time and a half on a $40 base rate, you can inject an additional $35,000 into your annual take-home pay. Now, time for a quick reality check. That is a very real trade-off against burnout. It's a fantastic short-term strategy to hit a specific financial goal, but probably not one you want to run indefinitely.
Finally, we reach Part 6, Contract Negotiation. You have the leverage, you know the benchmarks, so let's lock in the execution strategy for signing the actual contract. Because of that 63,000 listing volume we talked about right at the start, you hold the cards here. First, always compare 2 to 3 agencies for the exact same assignment. Don't just settle. Second, demand bill rate transparency. Knowing what the hospital is actually paying the agency is your superpower. Third, negotiate your housing stipends upfront to maximize your tax-free money. And fourth, never ever take the first offer. Seriously, simply pushing back using these tactics regularly wins nurses an extra $100 to $400 every single week. And we can't forget the power of the extension. Extending a contract is incredibly valuable to a facility. Think about it from their side. You're a known quantity, you're already fully trained, and crucially, you carry 0 new relocation costs for them. Because of this, it's highly common and frankly expected for you to negotiate a bump. For example, taking a $2,200 weekly rate up to $2,400 or even $2,600 simply by agreeing to stay on for another 13 weeks. So after walking through this playbook, the real question you have to ask yourself is, are you leaving money on the table? Med-Surg is the most available and flexible specialty out there right now. Before you sign your next contract, I highly recommend running your specific offer through the free Pay Decoder over at travelhealthcarepay.com. It completely strips away the agency marketing and shows you exactly what you'll net after taxes and expenses, ensuring you know precisely what your skills are worth in 2026. Thanks for joining me for this analysis, and keep leveraging that knowledge out there.